It's Turbo time! Hello Jamie, it's me, Turbo Man, and I'm going to tell you about the TurboGrafx-16, and you are going to listen, because it's very good for you, yeah? This is the TurboGrafx-16, a very strong and powerful video game machine built by the Japanese people in the year 1989. You know what, Jamie? This was a very special year, because there were a lot of very cool video games, like the DuckTales, and Mr. Sega was also building a video game machine that could play the Altered Beast. Look at those lats, quads and biceps, Jamie. It's so beautiful. It's not as beautiful as Turbo Man and the TurboGrafx-16, but Mr. Sega and the Fat Boy Mario. Forget about that because people forgot to buy the TurboGrafx-16 because they are dumb and they lack discipline, Jamie. But we will teach you now. Our first game is called China Warrior, and you better not look away, Jamie, or I'll come over there and spank you.
Alright. Thank you, Turbo Man. That won't be necessary, because today's game is a true spectacle, even if it's not exactly spectacular. China Warrior. China Warrior for the TurboGrafx-16 was released in the fall of 1989, and it was one of the first games available for NEC and Hudson Soft's brand new American console. In fact, China Warrior was one of the very first games developed by Hudson Soft for the Japanese PC Engine back in 1987. Indeed, the Japanese version of China Warrior, which was titled The Kung Fu, clearly indicates on the game's box art that this game is officially Hue Card number 1. Indeed, the PC Engine Hue Card for the Kung Fu itself also bears this unique designation of being volume number 1. Now this is odd because sources online indicate that neither the Kung Fu or China Warrior were technically launch games for either the PC Engine in 1987 or the TurboGrafx-16 in 1989 respectively. Supposedly the first two games available for the PC Engine were Bakurimon and Shanghai, but this Japanese PC Engine launch commercial from 1987 features Bakurimon, which is Hue Card number 2, and Kato-chan and Ken-chan, Hue Card Volume 5, and the Kung Fu, which again is formally designated as Hue Card Volume 1. Could the online databases, such as the PC Engine Software Bible, be wrong? Was the Kung Fu actually a PC Engine launch game? Or at the very least, does this mean that China Warrior, as we Westerners call it, is literally the first game Hudson Soft ever developed for the TurboGrafx-16 and PC Engine? It just might be, and perhaps this explains why China Warrior is so frequently dismissed as a tech demo for the TurboGrafx-16, since it clearly shows off the power of the console's 16-bit GPU, with large sprites that fill the screen without flicker or slowdown. The main character's sprite in China Warrior is about as tall as half the screen. He's more than twice as large as the character sprites in Sega's Altered Beast for the Genesis. That's really big for either 1987 or 1989. But come on, guys. Only an idiot would put a tech demo out on the store shelves. We're looking at you, Rise of the Robots, most anticipated game of 1994, and they forgot to include the game! No, the guys at Hudson Soft were not idiots. Rather, they were just wildly, uncharacteristically inventive and experimental for Japanese engineers. And China Warrior, despite its relatively short length, is in fact a complete game that takes quite a bit of effort and skill to master. But I know what you're thinking. What in the heck am I even looking at? Yes, Hudson Soft liked to do things different. That's partly why they were so good. But it also meant that sometimes they were a little too different. Just check out our review of JJ and Jeff if you don't believe me. China Warrior is a tough game to categorize. It looks at first glance like a side-scrolling beat-em-up, extremely reminiscent of Irem's Kung Fu. Both games feature small hordes of enemies running at you, random flying objects to avoid, some boss encounters. But the emphasis in China Warrior is shifted heavily away from beating up bad guys, and is instead more about memorization and quick timing as your avatar struggles to survive an absolutely insane onslaught of random flying objects coming from somewhere just off to the right of the screen. Where's all this crazy stuff coming from? Rocks? Boulders? Sticks? Hordes of killer butterflies? Knives? Balls? Fireballs? Snakes? It's weird. Is someone off screen just standing there throwing all this stuff? But who? Who's over there? And why are they frantically throwing rocks like Will Ferrell throws snowballs in Elf? My best guess is that it's these guys. These mysterious monks that non-aggressively just walk toward the left. They come in 3 different colors, gray, green, and orange. But they don't act like they want to hurt you. It sort of looks like they're just trying to get away from the crazy person off to the side that keeps hurling all those sticks and stones. But you can't help them. You can't even talk to them. The only thing to do is beat the living hell out of them. Blam, blam, blam! They're unarmed. They're malnourished. They're dog meat. And who's this guy anyway? He looks and fights like Bruce Lee, but would Bruce Lee massacre an entire monastery under attack from random flying objects? He might, I guess. But why does this guy do the things that he does? In Kung Fu, it was made very clear that you were just trying to rescue your girlfriend who was tied up on the top floor of a Chinese pagoda, guarded by little people and dudes in purple pajamas trying to give hugs. You know, normal shit. But there's no girlfriend rescue in China Warrior. Indeed, as soon as you finally meet a woman in China Warrior, the first thing you do is kick her ass. But why doesn't he just talk to her? Ask her about herself, make her feel special, put on a nice shirt. If he wants to make a good impression, then he needs to clean himself up and maybe get a job, or get active in the community. But you never hit women to get their attention. But if you're not trying to save your girlfriend from danger, then I ask, is this even a real video game? What's the freaking point? I have to admit though, that's a fairly impressive character sprite in terms of both size and detail, but not really so much as it pertains to animation or design. He walks around like he's trying to hold in a fart, and what's up with these skinny chicken legs? Just look at his ankles. My 14-year-old daughter's got more bone density than that. No wonder he wears those MC Hammer pants. This dude totally skips leg day. And then he's got this cholo thing going on with these black Stacy's and white tubos, homie. Who is this vato? I mean, he's walking around in public without a shirt on, and he does start a lot of fights with people smaller than himself. Sounds like a cholo to me. I'm not really feeling this guy. I will say, however, that it's cool he occasionally blinks, and that he takes visible damage, like a UFC fighter. Damn, dog, look at that face, homie! Detailed sprites that can change over time and that are ridiculously large were virtually unheard of in 1989. But that doesn't really mean that this game looks all that great. The backgrounds are flat, repetitive, sparse, cliche, uninspired, and overall, shitty. The best level in the game looks like a Chinese restaurant. The worst looks like the inside of the devil's colon. I think this is supposed to be a cave. It does have bats in it after all, but it looks like poop, man. And there's nothing particularly dynamic about these level designs. You're forced to walk to the right without the ability to backtrack. You can move to the far left in order to slow the inevitable march forward, but you're basically in a forced scrolling situation like a space shooter, rolling along on a conveyor belt, like life, dragging you further toward the uncertain oblivion, somewhere just off to the right of the screen. In the meantime, you avoid objects, smash helpless monks, and then boss fights. Oh man, the boss fights. At the end of all 12 stages, China Warrior suddenly stops the forced scrolling and becomes a one-on-one fighting game, complete with new mechanics just to mess with your head. You could still do all your usual moves: straight punch, duck punch, straight kick, jump kick, and the classic Bruce Lee jumping dragon kick, the deadliest kick known to man, the flying chick magnet. Oh baby! But now, sometimes during boss fights, if you perform the same move as your opponent, you will block their attack. But of course this means you can also be blocked, and that's a huge problem here because in addition to China Warrior suffering from fairly unimpressive controls, your opponent can read all of your input commands like a book for children, easily, quickly, and without mercy. That is to say, the boss AI in this game is cheaper than a date at In-N-Out Burger.
Why did he bring me here? Gross, it's like inside of a bathroom.
Here it is! You're gonna love it! All of this for less than $15!
It's a burger.
Not just any burger, it's a double animal style. It's from the secret menu.
The only success I've had in dealing with the boss fights has been retreating a few steps and then counter-attacking once they're in range. Whack! But success more often than not probably requires a little bit of luck. It's kind of like playing rock, paper, scissors. You need to kick if they punch if they go low, or use your special attack by pressing forward and punch at the same time. Some of the earlier boss fights can be easily beaten with simple pattern recognition, but most of the latter are a serious test of patience. There are technically only a few different boss sprites in the game, and most of them are just color swapped and recycled across all 12 levels. This includes a boss sprite that looks exactly like your Bruce Lee avatar, but with varying skin tones, including a kind of zombie-looking gray. Something these big boss sprites all seem to have in common is being based on 1970s kung fu movies. We've already spotted this guy for Bruce Lee, but this annoyingly difficult boss is Jackie Chan. The lady appears to be Angela Mao, a Hong Kong-based actress that appeared in over 30 movies throughout the 70s. Her nickname was Lady Whirlwind, and like Jackie Chan, she was frequently compared to Bruce Lee. When you fight her in China Warrior, it's kinda messed up, because when you beat her up, she slumps to the floor and cries. That's awful! The game's final boss is very obviously Yu Su-tien, the guy who played Beggar So in the popular Drunken Master movies with Jackie Chan. The only boss sprite that I don't recognize as a Hong Kong movie star is the very first boss, which is this bald guy with torn pants and no shoes. Given the pattern, I'm betting this is supposed to be another character from a 70s kung fu movie, probably a Golden Harvest production, like the rest of these characters, but I can't say for sure who this is. So I'm calling him Homeless Joe. This is Beggar So, and this is Homeless Joe. This is Chinese Fro, this is Girl on the Flow, and this is, I guess this is just Jackie Chan. But what a weird cast of characters. Did anyone get any royalties for this game? This makes me wonder whether or not the Kung Fu or China Warrior wasn't originally intended to be a very different game from the one that we got. To me, it looks like this could have been a rudimentary 2D fighting game based on popular Kung Fu movies. But at some point in development, Hudson had to change directions, probably due to the extreme memory limitations of their early HuCard games. This is HuCard number 1 from 1987, and back then the format could only hold 2 megabytes of data. This definitely explains why China Warrior only contains 4 backgrounds for all 12 levels, and why there's only a few major character sprites. There just isn't enough memory capacity on the early HuCard format to do anything more elaborate, and I'm betting maybe Hudson Soft had to reformat a fighting game into a side-scrolling action game, where you have to dodge random generic projectiles. And this could explain why they did all of this with such monstrously huge sprites, completely robbing the player of the ability to see anything coming off the screen before it's literally right in front of you. That sucks. But once you get the hang of it, it's kind of fun dodging all of this crazy stuff, especially once you've figured out that most objects can be destroyed with a punch or kick. Further, every level follows a set pattern, and objects all come at you from one of several different planes, which correspond to one of your kung fu moves. If it flies at your face, you punch it. If it rolls, you jump over it. If it's low but off the ground, kick it. And if it flies, jump kick it or dodge it. It's almost kind of a rhythm game, and once you get in the groove and memorize the levels, it really starts to be fun. Adding to this experience is China Warrior's one and only song. It's a total banger.
Alright, yeah, woohoo!
One eternity later.
Whoa, alright, woohoo!
Okay, maybe it's kinda irksome to have just one song in a 20-minute long video game, but once again, it's a 2 megabyte game card. Beggars can't be choosers. Overall, if it weren't for China Warrior's frustrating, stiffly animated boss fights, of which there are many, then I probably would actually recommend this game. But as it is, it's at least very interesting. It's officially the very first TurboGrafx-16 game, even though it was neither a pack-in game or technically a day one launch title. And it's unique in that it blatantly steals all these characters from 1970s kung fu movies, all from Hong Kong-based Golden Harvest Studios no less. China Warrior is not a great game, but it's a hard game to forget, and it's one of those games that could have been really awesome if only Hudson Soft had the chance to revise it a bit with a sequel.
Thank you, Jamie, and thank you for watching the Turbo Time by Creative Cat Productions. We look forward to seeing your face again in the sequel, yeah. Hasta la vista, baby. We'll be back.
The meat and the french fries are all freshly cut. It's really all about quality fresh ingredients. So, do you like it?
I love it.
What have I gotten myself into?